So my view on Bitcoin kind of remains what it always was, which was, and I coined this a while ago, is I think of it as the kind of perfect collateral layer of this new digital economy, because it's pristine collateral in the way that it can't be debased. You know, if you think of how, let's say, a treasury bond works, it's kind of weird because when everybody needs treasury bonds, the Fed creates more of them. So your collateral is actually worth less over time, which is the debasement of money idea. Now, you can't do that with Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin is your base layer of collateral, then what you get is an ability to get paid for people wanting collateral in a collateral squeeze, which is what the financial system needs at its base. But it became obvious to me that Bitcoin doesn't solve every problem. It solves certain problems really well, and others it doesn't solve as well. So that was really my evolution. And then as the space broadened out, you realized, okay, this is an incredibly deep, fast-moving space with so many applications that it doesn't make sense to be all on one blockchain. Different blockchains will specialize in different things. So that's basically my Bitcoin hypothesis.
I don't necessarily think that it's productive to limit usability of Bitcoin to kind of DeFi or posting it as collateral to borrow and spend. I'm from Morocco myself, which is an emerging market. And when you discuss kind of the demand for a hedge against a capricious governments, something like Bitcoin is top of mind over something like Ethereum or an
and I think the point being is they're two entirely different things. I think
exactly.
We probably violently agree with each other, and I think that makes sense. Is it depends what kind of adoption we're looking for within it. If we're looking for nation states, corporate balance sheets, and others, then stuff like Ethereum doesn't make sense because it's not trying to be money. It's trying to do other things. But base layer of money, yes. I mean, it works at that kind of sovereign state level, corporate level, a supranational entity level.
Shiba Inu, for instance, is likely going to outperform Ethereum as well, or the next generation meme coin. And sort of the broader point is that if we sort of focus exclusively on what is going to maximize returns without anchoring ourselves to like an ethos or remaining principled in what these networks are trying to solve for, I think we end up actually reverting or increase our probabilities of reverting to the status quo, right?
No,
so I think
I don't think so. And I don't think so because it's time horizon that matters the most. So Shiba Inu might outperform over periods of risk where it becomes a meme and then it disappears, or it becomes less significant in value. Doge, let's see how that changes as Tesla starts to accept it, Mark Cuban starts to accept it. Who knows? Can they build the other side of the network effects? That's possible. But I think over time, these things will be proven out and where they fit in the ecosystem. And Ethereum's network adoption has been faster than Bitcoin recently. So we've seen that growth. Will that play out in the next 5 years? No clue. But our job really is to find that. Having a philosophy doesn't really help you as an investor. However, Interesting. I also believe that, because every time I've seen people with an anti-Fed philosophy or an anti-this or a pro-that, they always get killed. There is a difference in this space because the technology is integrated with the network itself. So people can be philosophical builders on this network because they want to build a better future. And that's great. And I completely encourage that. Mm-hmm. But don't criticize somebody else for not sharing this philosophy, and that if you don't, then you're a heathen. That smacks to me of religion, and it's not. That shouldn't come into investing. I don't think any of us can play the voice of God, and the market will choose. So if the market wants cheaper, less decentralization, faster, those trade-offs the market will take. And we can yell from the sidelines saying, how dare you do this? And we sound like gold investors.
Sure.
We have to be really careful on imposing our wish versus what the market chooses. Because if not, we get left behind often by sticking to a prior narrative. I think what I do love about this space is there are people focused on specifics. So spreading the core philosophy of Bitcoin, if they can get network adoption of their narrative, fantastic. It's good for everybody. So it's kind of it's more fluid, I think, than people want it to be.
Is it fair to acknowledge that if we end up overcorrecting for convenience and centralization, that we end up reverting to the status quo? And then ultimately, what is the value proposition of public blockchains if it ends up just looking like a Visa?
The question is how are you going to stop it in a free market full of entrepreneurs all looking for an edge? It's impossible to stop now. So you have to hope that the market sees the relative differences and understands the trade-offs. And we can talk about that and explain it to people. But the point being is, because it's decentralized, it's not like Google making a decision here. There's millions of entrepreneurs deciding to try something different. And we can't say don't. I look at it at a much broader level than all of this. I look at it as the enabling the digital age for the transfer and ownership of value in whichever format that comes. And we will have millions of different needs and use cases for millions of different things. Which ones survive is like any business. Which network survives? It depends whether people believe in it, they find utility from it and value from it. If that is the case, it can survive. But we don't know where this is going.
Yep.
So I'm not thinking of it in any way as an investor in my long-term horizon, apart from the fact that it's probably, whatever it is, $2 trillion today, and it probably goes to $200 trillion. How that's composed in the future, I have no idea. But what I know is where it's going and why it's going there, because to create the internet of value, which is distributed, giving ownership back to the individual away from giant corporations, is something that the whole space is building towards. So that philosophy, everybody shares, which is interesting, versus the specific philosophies of different protocols. I don't believe in a winning blockchain. I think it shifts over time. I believe in interoperability and the fact that we will choose to trade off. Let's say we want to give out some NFTs to Real Vision users. Now, we might not use Ethereum because it's going to cost us $250 to mint. So maybe we use another chain. But if it's interoperable, you can then store it in your Ethereum wallet. Again, I think we're so used to the monopolistic tendencies of large corporations who can create moats that we forget that this is almost the opposite, and we don't know what the outcomes are, and that's half the excitement of the space, is not knowing. Now, as you said, I don't think there's any competition to Bitcoin at that moneyness layer, that base layer, that pristine collateral, because nothing else is trying to solve for that, because it's actually hard to improve. But for the other elements, once interoperability comes in, we can use Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, whatever we want, interoperably for different purposes. That's going to create a whole new hybrid structure of opportunities that we just don't have today, which is interesting. I kind of think that each individual network has its narratives and sub-narratives. If that narrative is attractive enough to enough people, it will grow as a network. And if it's not attractive, it won't grow as a network. So Shiba Inu is unlikely to grow as a network over time unless it has a network utility, which it currently doesn't have. So in which case, interest dies over time. So it's the same if somebody sees something as too centralized and the crowd, the hive mind of people involved in this, decide that that's not what they want. They will migrate to a chain that has more decentralization. So again, I don't think it's up to us to say, but we can choose the ecosystem we want. So I choose to be a more active participant in the Ethereum ecosystem because of how it treats its network participants, which is less combative than those in the Bitcoin ecosystem. That will change over time too. Narrative shift, people shifts, that kind of stuff. But, I think we tend to coalesce around places, networks that we feel suit our needs. And if the market decides that decentralization, the ultimate decentralization is the need, they will coalesce around Bitcoin. If they don't, they won't.